is Monday, and so we're hoping that you are on your way to work just so that you can get to work with the rest of your team, whatever it is that you're working this morning, as you try to figure how your business is going to run. That means that you're running into a situation which you already do know in terms of your managers and in terms of your specific teams this morning as we start the show. Now, you might be working at a very good place. I'm talking about in terms of the environment that has been created, in terms of the way that you deal with your employees, or not. So let's speak to you this morning who thinks you don't work at a very good area in terms of the way your managers and your employees interact with you, and for you who thinks that you're already working at a good area. That means that you haven't run into whatever it is that we're talking about this morning, toxicity at work. This morning, to help us understand exactly what companies and managers and you should do, therefore, just to steer clear of this area that we're talking about this morning, we do have Dr. Mary Mugo again this morning, helping us open our fine Monday. How are you doing, Dr. Ari?
I'm well, thank you.
Happy to see you.
Good morning and happy to see you guys.
Anyway, so now I'm getting ready because I also want to take notes, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to break it in a very simple way. Why should we talk about toxicity at work?
Now, Simba, the reason why we must talk about toxicity in the workplace is because when a person works in a toxic environment, there are things that are likely to happen. One, because in a toxic environment, in a work environment that is toxic, for instance, you'll find there's a lot of infighting. You'll find there's a lot of personal battles. In other words, people personalize everything. In a toxic work environment, you'll find there's a lot of confusing communication. If communication is not confusing, then that communication doesn't seem to come through, which of course therefore leads to an employee who is very demotivated. In fact, if you have a toxic boss or you have very many toxic employees, you end up being sick, depressed, so health issues. So talking about toxicity is very important because it helps not just the institution, but more so the worker, so that you feel good when you wake up at 5 and you know you're going to work in a place where people are gossiping you, where people, there's a lot of favoritism. Then you'll not work very well. And that will also ensure that the productivity of the organization is affected. So we must talk about it because it is true there are people who are very toxic. And by the way, it's not just in the workplace, even in our lives, even in our neighborhoods, there are people who are really toxic. So this is something that everybody should be able to listen to because it will affect the way you stay at home. It will affect even what you do and what you become. For the simple reason, I like the good book again. When you read the good book, you'll find that there are some guys, for those who read the book of Nehemiah, Tobias and Sanballat, very interesting names. Now these guys, when Tobias was building the house, they started laughing at him and telling him, hey, this house of yours is gonna fall. You know, you can imagine working and your colleagues or your boss is telling you, Simba, business AM, sioni. You know, you feel demotivated, you don't feel like you want to work, and above all things, you get stressed up. And when people are stressed, that is why you hear people are, they are committing suicide and they are at work. I've had many times in Kenya people, throwing themselves from I don't know which floor, and they are working in good companies, so to speak, and actually even being in very high positions. It's just because they were not able to handle the toxicity in the workplace. And my view is very simple. Don't rent toxic people any space in your mind. It is yours. Why are you giving them rent? Make sure that your rent is so high that no toxic person can get there. And also it is important, why we must talk about toxicity is because it affects who you become in the future if you're not careful. And again, the good book says, in fact, that is what one of my daughters was teaching us last night in our family devotion, that, the book, it says, who do you say, Jesus asked the disciples, who do people say I am? But you see, at the end, he asks them, but who do you say I am? In other words, you must understand who you are and forget about these toxic guys. If you have to follow your dream, Simba, you must understand this area of toxicity and move on with or without them.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right, let's go understand that. For somebody who's really trying to understand, I would like to think the different levels of toxicity, especially when it comes to the workplace, before we now start talking about how to deal with it. How do you identify that somebody is toxic? I mean, there could be the telltale signs, yes, but how do you identify that, this person might be toxic?
Now, there are various ways that you can identify a toxic person, whether an employee, whether a neighbor, whether a friend. Number one, toxic people are negative, okay? They will always be negative. They expend negative energy. You know, people who give you negative energy, you're so happy. They just, they just come with some funny thing, and then they're like, oh, you know, you people think you know, blah, blah, blah. Negative energy.
Yes.
So if you see someone who is always negative, then no, they could be toxic. Number two, toxic people are manipulative and deceitful. They'll manipulate you even in the workplace. They manipulate you in the way you do things. Yeah?
Yes.
Toxic people also in the workplace are not just manipulative, but they never accept mistakes. In fact, a toxic person always turns tables. They make you feel guilty. When they do something, they want to show that it is not their problem. It is your problem. You can imagine somebody is hurting you and then they twist it. Yeah? Toxic people are full of themselves, Simba. They are people who have what I would call a fragile ego. They are full of themselves. For them, nothing matters except themselves. Nothing matters except their opinions. Have you seen people, even friends, for them, what they say is gospel truth.
It's got to stop.
I mean, what are you saying? So toxic employees,
yes,
they always think they are right.
Yes.
And basically it is about my opinion. In fact, they think they are the most intelligent people in the room. Even when you're in a meeting or you're talking, in fact, most of them will even come late so that you can know they have arrived. Full of themselves. You're in a meeting, serious meeting, and then they just come and they're like, and they even keep taking you back to what you've already discussed because they are full of themselves.
I see.
Now, toxic people also, if they compliment you, they must put a negative thing. I've never seen someone telling you, Simba, you look smart, but
you know?
Toxic. Because why are you saying Simba looks smart and then you start that? So toxic people will compliment you, but they will have something negative.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So, but also there are toxic people or employees this time, toxic employees towards their boss. You will know that an employee is toxic if they talk ill of their boss or colleagues behind their backs.
Yes.
If an employee does not, you ask them to do something and they must question. And you're even their supervisor. You tell them, hey, today I want us to do 1, 2, 3. They're like, why do you want us to do that? They question everything they're asked to do. And if they do it, actually they willingly do things late, willingly. So they know that I've been asked to do this by 2 p.m. They'll either not do it, or if they have to do it, they'll do it at 1:59, and after very many reminders.
Yes.
And basically, what they are trying to do is to portray their supervisor as incapable.
Nice.
They are trying to portray their team members. They are trying to portray them as people who don't know what they are doing. They are trying to portray them like, in short, they are trying to stress them and to make sure that they have a hard time. That is how you identify toxic people, whether you are a boss, whether you are a colleague.
Yes.
So those are various ways that you can actually know that this one is a toxic person.
Pretty much toxic.
They are just there. Everything they say is negative. Everything. You can even say the right thing, but in a negative way.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So they are basically negative people.
Yes.
They'll gossip any day, any time. For them, Actually, they do the bare minimum. The ones we were talking about last time. They do the bare minimum, and as they do that bare minimum, they are talking about you to other people. They are like, why do people work so hard? I mean, it's not. If you check like that, they'll even be saying, "Hey, why do people go to work? See, you are sema tufanye kazi from nyumbani." You know. Negative always. They never seem to be positive. And if they have to be positive, they must put some negative aspect.
Pretty much.
And remember, those are either employees. I don't know whether you want me to tell you who are toxic bosses or...
Pretty much, but we're actually going there. So now, let's help them somebody. I know we're going to talk about what strategies a business or any company needs to put in place therefore to deal with these toxic employees. But how do I, as a person, doctor, start dealing with these toxic employees? What is my go-to area in my workplace for me to deal with these toxic employees?
Now, if you want to deal with a toxic employee, number one, what you must do is you must identify them. And we have seen the various ways that you can identify them.
Yes.
Number two, you must identify the trigger. You know, there's some people are negative for various reasons. Yeah? So identify the trigger. What triggers them to behave the way they are behaving? Now, when you discover what the trigger is and address it and nothing seems to work, the other thing that is important is they must be cancelled.
Yes.
They must be, you know, someone must actually, probably your supervisor, let them know that what they are doing is affecting their own growth first and the growth of the organization. So you must be able to cancel them, okay? And by the way, if you have a good hiring process, you can weed them from the recruitment part of it.
Yes.
And you can tell that by looking at various personalities of people who are toxic. Maybe if you want to know those because of time, if you don't want to know those personalities, you should buy my book.
Pretty much, we're going to talk about it.
You can cancel them.
Yes.
And let them know that there are consequences for behaving the way you're behaving. In fact, you should never protect a toxic employee. Or you should never shy away from them, because what happens is when you find a toxic employee, most of us transfer them to another department.
Yes.
So you are transferring toxicity to other people.
To other departments.
So you must let them know that what you're doing is not right.
Yes.
And there are consequences to what you're doing. So cancel them, coach them. And in fact, it is good if the best way to do that is to ensure that you even agree what they must do to change. Yeah? And if they don't change, you let the toxins go. How do you do How do you do that? Just let them go home. Because you see, at the end of the day, you cannot have one person affecting 20 people and you still let them stay there. It doesn't matter how an expert they are.
Yes.
Because you see, if you are an expert but you emit negative energy, it affects the other people. It affects the organization. So if everything else fails, then you let them go. But allow me to say that also it is good for the bosses to ask themselves if there are things they are doing that is causing people to be toxic. Yeah? Because you see, there are some organizations, for example, where there's a lot of favoritism, there's a lot of, confusion, there's no information that is coming. So people must somehow do some of those funny things like gossip, and so that they can retain their jobs, especially now.
Yes.
So even as bosses, therefore, you must ask yourselves, are there things that we are doing in this organization that is actually, making employees want to be toxic to survive?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna read just a direct question that we actually keep on receiving this morning. Now, this is Richard. He's saying, "Good morning. I'm watching the show. Can you please ask Daktari?" I know I had that question, but I just want to phrase it the way Richard is phrasing it this morning. How do you deal with someone who is toxic, especially your boss? Now let's talk about that, because I know it was part of a conversation.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, let me just tell you, a toxic bosses.
Yes.
I hope none of them is listening to me. Now, a toxic boss
Yes.
is one that makes an employee feel unworthy.
Nice.
They make you feel inadequate.
Nice.
They make you feel you are incapable. They have employed you, but the way they do things, if you do something, they're like, Simba, I don't think you could have done this. Did you really do this? And you know, they make you feel unworthy.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And a toxic boss can either be incompetent or a bully. Before I tell you how to deal with them, they can be incompetent or a bully.
Those are the only two reasons why a boss would be toxic, isn't it? I mean, when you balance it, it's either you're incompetent or you're a bully.
Yes, and the incompetent one is not very bad. Because, you see, an incompetent boss
yes.
will not injure your self-esteem. Actually, most toxic bosses injure people's self-esteem. But an incompetent one will not injure your self-esteem. They will not victimize you. The only problem with a toxic boss who is incompetent is they slow you down. They slow your career down because you have to do your work and their work. A bully is an evil one. Because a toxic boss who is a bully, they ensure that your self-esteem goes low. They ensure that you even get depressed. In fact, they even ensure they don't give you work. You know, there's some bosses who you find that they are giving other people work except you. Just to make you feel you don't know.
Like you don't know.
Yeah.
Or you don't belong.
No, that's a bully.
Yes.
They will give, and you know, they're giving work in a meeting. They say, Simba, you'll do this. You, Mary, you'll do this. And then when it reaches your turn, I think the rest I'll let you know. You feel, and you know, now that is a bully. A bully, a bully. Simba.
But I'm laughing because I've experienced this, Mary. I mean,
oh, you have? Then you must be a strong man. You know, a toxic boss who is a bully, they even ensure, even when they have given you work, they even sabotage the work they have given you.
Yes.
Yeah? So you need to ask yourself, before I tell you how to deal with a boss who is toxic, you need to ask yourself,
yes,
is this boss incompetent or are they a bully?
Yes.
Because if it's an incompetent one, you don't need to worry too much.
Yes.
You just need to manage him. If it's a bully, then there are some strategies you must have. Now, how do you deal with a toxic boss?
Yes.
Number one, understand you cannot change him or her. Because they are your boss. You can't. So, in other words,
yes,
you must navigate through unless you want to go, and which is also a strategy.
Yes.
So what we must do is, first of all, understand you cannot change your boss.
Yes.
No, you can only navigate through. So what do you need to do? Number one, you need to develop your skills. In readiness of anything, yeah? Because you see, the problem comes, Simba, if your toxic boss also has a toxic boss. Because now the two toxic bosses will believe each other. So you'll be fired for nothing. So, and it happens, by the way.
Yes,
develop your skills.
Yes.
Develop your skills. And of course, number two, understand you are not the problem. You see, why people get depressed when they are dealing with toxic bosses is they think they are the problem. Understand you are not the problem. You know, the problem is the boss, not you. In fact, when people are what they speak.
Yes.
So if you see someone who is very toxic and who is always making people feel unworthy, that is what they are.
Pretty much.
So it is not about you.
Yes.
It is about the boss. So understand you are not the problem. Number three, if possible, ask to be reassigned or redeployed,
yes,
to another department.
I see.
And by the way, a bully, toxic boss sometimes will even refuse that deployment. They'll even say, no, Simba cannot go. Simba is my best employee. But they never give you up. So then for them, they are basically what I would call sadists.
I see.
They want you to suffer.
Yes.
A sadist is someone who derives pleasure when they see you suffering. I mean, it's really serious, but it happens. So you ask for a deployment to another department where your skills are appreciated.
Yes.
And the other key way you can handle a toxic boss is to, if all the other things fail, just leave. Why? Because your health is more important than your job.
Yes.
In fact, I keep telling people, Simba, that your job and you are mutually exclusive. You must have that mind at all time. You can do without each other. I tell people nobody was born where they work.
Yes.
The only thing that you can't do without is yourself. You know, so if the worst comes to the worst and your boss is that toxic, because toxic bosses lead to employees getting depressed, employees have health issues, they are stressed up, headaches, migraine.
Yes.
I mean, it's not worth it. If your boss is that toxic and you can't navigate through,
leave.
Fumigate.
Isn't it? All right. Now,
Yeah.
Dr. Mary, I got to tell you this. Wow. There's a lot that we got to do. But guess what? We're just getting started. Now, we only have 2 minutes, though. And
Wow.
those 2 minutes, I've just asked them from my director. So now, we have a lot of questions here that I want us to just respond with a one-answer response. All right. How does a toxic employee recover? When you've been identified, you are toxic.
Now, how toxic employee recovers is very simple. Recovery of a toxic employee is through forgiveness and reconciliation.
Pretty much. All right. Now, number 3, and because I think we've handled number 2. All right. Now, how does an employee handle another employee, let me say a colleague, that calls them petty all the time?
You see, first of all, if they are calling you petty, it's because they are toxic by nature. Because why would someone call you petty? You see, what is petty to you is not petty to me. How you handle such colleagues is just be formal.
Yes.
Just be formal in your dealings with them. When you're formal, even the most toxic employee will just have nothing to say because you're formal. You're just saying this is what you're doing.
Yes.
In fact, if you have too many toxic employees, just be formal. Write memos. This is what is to be done. This is the deadline.
Pretty much. All right. Now, all these conversations we're talking about this morning actually are from a book that Dr. Mary Mugo is actually now authored right now. I just want you to lift so that guys can actually get to see it. Now, that is the book. It is How to Thrive, Influence Your Workplace. Now, that's exactly what it is that we're talking about this morning. And Dr. Mary Mugo, how can they get that book?
Yeah, you can get this book very easily, and this book is good for you because you will not, you will be a happy worker like I am, as you can see. Me, I don't care what people think, I just live. So you can get this book by calling 0776 045 087, or you can write an email to info@marymugo.com. The number again, 0776 045 087.
Fantastic. I mean, there's no better way to start your morning today. Now you do know. If you have been identified as a toxic employee, a toxic manager, you do know exactly what you have to do, or now you do have the right therefore to go get that book, give yourself some knowledge on exactly how you can just pretty much navigate your work environment. That is Dr. Mary Mugo for you. And I want to make a plea that we need more time on this so we can actually call it Business Am Book Club Review. We can get more time on it. I mean, there were so many areas that we have not touched this morning, but thank you very much for your questions this morning. I hope you have been answered. If not, you do know what to do. Keep them coming in. 2146, that's your SMS line at Metropol TV KE across all your social media platforms. Now, let's take that break. But once we come back, now, Taskiz is in trouble. But that opens up another chapter that is sort of an extension from what we're talking about this morning. Is it a case of the retail sector trouble or just a case of problems that occur within family-owned businesses? Let's discuss that next.